So I want to thank you guys for all coming today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out and see this. And today, we're actually going to talk about the private catalog. So this is actually the first time we're actually talking about this publicly. We just launched our alpha last week. And so I want to talk to you about kind of what we built and kind of why this might be beneficial for your enterprise. So before we start, I actually want to take a quick survey. How many of you here actually consider yourselves like a cloud IT admin? Cool. All right, we got a few. How about developers? A few here. Architects? One, two, three, four. OK, cool. All right, so this talk is actually going to touch on most of that. For the rest of you here, hopefully we'll have something for you guys as well. But basically, we'll talk about what we're doing with the private catalog. So I'm going to define the private catalog the way we think it should be. It's to enable service producers and cloud admins to control distribution of solutions. We want to ensure internal compliance and governance. And we want solutions to be discoverable within your enterprise and, of course, easily deployable. So the words control, compliance, governance, discoverable. So those are the key things that I want you to take away from the session today. And those are the pillars that we used in order to actually build the private catalog. So I'm going to do things a little different today. Instead of giving you a bunch of slides of how great this is and all the features and functionality and everything, I want to tell you a little bit of a story. We're going to walk through it and show you how a fictional enterprise might actually leverage the private catalog. All right. So there's a company called Acme Game Studio. So Acme has about 500 people. They've been around for a few years. They've got a huge market share on game development on mobile devices. So they develop for iOS, they develop for Android, Windows Phone, Nintendo devices, kind of anything you can think of. So these guys basically have an IT environment where they develop virtual machines for their dev and test environments. So the way it works is a developer at Acme will go find the right VM that they need to develop their product or their feature or their bug fixes. They'll deploy that. That VM actually contains all the SDK tools, their build tools, integrations with their build lab. Everything's there. So they can go ahead, fix it, then deploy the test VM. The test VM is going to contain all the emulators that they need in order to actually test their bug fixes or their features. And if everything looks good, they'll go ahead and check it in and then shut down the machines. That way, they don't spend a lot of money. They don't leave machines idle all the time. And that's kind of like the environment that they are actually using. So I want to introduce Andy, who is a cloud admin. So Andy is the guy at Acme that actually manages those 20 virtual machines within their enterprise. So he notifies, so he's the one that updates them. He notifies all the developers whenever things change. And so there's new tools coming out all the time. There's patches coming out all the time. So he's updating constantly. Like every few weeks, he's changing things. And originally, he was sending emails to everyone when things change. And so emails get lost. He sends a lot of emails. As you guys know, developers then end up ignoring those. And then they kind of get lost, and no one knows what's going on next. So he handles a lot of support tickets. He gets 30 to 40 a week. And most of these tickets are like, where's the latest image? Just, I want to get my job done. Just, where's my latest image? So he decided he's going to create a wiki. So anytime he made the update, he updates the wiki. He tells everyone, go to the wiki. The wiki's got a link to the latest and greatest. Everyone was happy. Then he went on vacation. The guys taking over forgot to update the wiki. People started deploying older images, and then they ran into the same problems over and over. So here's Darryl. Darryl's a developer at Acme. He's been there for a couple years. He loves the company, loves the culture, just hates the tools. He has no idea where things are at, right? Like, he just wants to deploy the latest and greatest. He wants to be in compliance with whatever the company's set, all the rules, all the governance stuff. Like, he just doesn't want all that friction. He just wants to get his job done, right? And so, whenever he needs a new image, he has no idea where to get it. Like, there's a bunch of emails floating around. There was a wiki. There's no wiki anymore. He doesn't know what's going on, right? He has to ask around, ask people, ask coworkers, phone a friend. Like, he just doesn't know what he needs to do. So Darryl basically just doesn't care. He just launches his VMs, goes, fixes his bugs, and it just keeps it running. So he's constantly causing a lot of money to be wasted while his VMs are actually just being left around. And because the tools keep getting updated a lot, anytime he makes a change, he checks it in, he's making a huge risk that he's going to break the build. So when he does break the build, then he'll go find the right VM, go port his change, go test it, and then check that in, causing a couple of delays for everyone else, blocking everyone in the pipe. So not really great. So does this sound familiar to you guys? Do you guys kind of handle this? I see a lot of nodding heads. Good. All right. So let's go actually try to help Andy fix this. So I'm going to actually do a demo of the live bits. I mentioned that we actually shipped the alpha last week, so I'm going to be running the real thing and show you guys how Andy's going to actually fix some of these problems. All right. Can you guys switch over? Cool. All right. So I'm actually logged in as the Acme admin. And to get to the private catalog, on the left nav was the private catalog. So what you're seeing here is what we call the zero state. So you've got nothing in here. This is the private catalog. There's nothing for you to see because we haven't added anything. As an admin, I actually have a button here that says Go to Catalog Manager. It's also on the left here, Manage Solutions. So I'm actually now in the admin console for the private catalog. So the first thing I want to do is actually go and create a catalog. So what is a catalog? A catalog is really just a grouping of the solutions that you want to make available to your end users. So creating a catalog is actually really easy. Just click on Create Catalog, and let's just call this DevTools. Tools for developers. All right, so the name is actually important because that's actually what we're going to show to your end users. And then basically the description is just for the admin itself. So I'm actually creating a catalog right now. It's taking a few seconds because this is real code working in the back. And the visibility of catalogs actually depending on a few things. I'm actually going to back out. So because I want to show you how multiple catalogs interact with each other, so let me actually create one more catalog here. Let's just call this test tools. All right. So as this is being created, I mentioned like visibility depends on a few things. One is when you create a catalog, after you're ready to make it visible to your end users, you want to share it somewhere in the GCP hierarchy. And that will be at the org level, the folder level, or the project level. Then you need to grant access to your users to that org, folder, or project. And that user will also need an IAM role to view catalogs. So those things all need to be in effect before the end users can see it. So as the admin, you control basically where it's getting displayed and then who has access to it. All right, so I've created my two catalogs. So there's a dev tools and a test tools. And going in there, basically, I can add a solution. So we're in alpha. We still have a long ways to go. But for our alpha, we have two solution types that we support. The first is a link solution. And a link solution is really just a reference link to anything. It could be a link to a Terraform script. It could be a link to documentation. It could be a link to a GitHub repository. So it's really whatever you feel should be available to your end users, you can add that. The other one is a deployment manager solution. So for those that don't know what deployment manager is basically a way for you to kind of set up a directive to deploy GCP first-party content. And so you can use deployment manager to deploy VMs, containers, deploy a VM with an auto-scaling group and a load balancer, pretty much anything that GCP can support. So within my dev tools, let me go ahead and create a product. So this is going to be my Android dev tools. So Android development tools with SDK. I think they're at 29. I'm not sure where they're at. The tagline is the short description that your end user is going to see in the little tile view. So let's just call this Android dev tools. So I can go ahead and browse. Give me an icon here. Here's one I've picked out. Support information for your end users, so if they run into problems, they'll know who to contact. So I'll just say contact admin@acme.com. Acme admin for the creator. So the deployment manager template, this is where you would go ahead and point to the template. So let me kind of show you what one of these templates look like. So here's one I created, which had a zip file. I'm going to open it up. And so one of the things I mentioned earlier was control. So how are you actually going to control what and where your users are going to deploy these solutions to? So let me zoom in here. And so in my example here, I'm going to show you how to actually control what machine type and what region the user is going to deploy to. And so here we have zone, the property zone, and we've got machine type here. So this is actually going to set up a parameter as part of the deployment experience. So when the end user is deploying this to the private catalog, they'll actually be able to select from a list that you as the admin curated that you want them to deploy to. And the way that works is that there's a schema file that you would include with your deployment manager template. I'm going to bring this up. And so I mentioned earlier there's machine type and zone. So you'd define it here, where you'd have your different machine types and then the zones available. So to show that this is all real, let's go ahead and actually just limit these users to deploy to N1 standards and deploy to just one region. Let's say US Central. All right. So let me save this and close it. And I'm going to zip this up, and then we'll actually use this as part of the demo. One gotcha is you do need to name your deployment manager templates the same name as the template file itself. We've got our Diem Friends down here. They can explain why later. I'm not sure why, but that's just a limitation we have right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and browse to that file I added. And here's the zip file. And I'm going to add. So that's pretty much it. That's how you add a solution to the private catalog. So to kind of make it look a little better later, I'm going to go ahead and add an iOS dev tools as well. That way, at least it'll look pretty cool when we actually have multiple products in the catalog. So, all right, so here's the iOS tools. I can't use the other logo, so. And I've got another zip file for iOS. Cool. All right, so now I've added basically two solutions to one catalog for my private catalog. And now I'm going to go to my test catalog, and let me add a link solution. So let's just call this the Android developer documentation. All right. All right, so Android dev docs. So I'm going to give this an icon here. Same support information, contact, admin, admin. All right, so here, for your reference links, you just put in a URL to anything. So in this case, developer.android.com. So now I've added a link solution to my test tools. So I have three solutions total. So I mentioned earlier, visibility actually requires a few things. So it's sharing the catalog somewhere in the GCP hierarchy, granting permissions to that user to that location in the hierarchy, and making sure that end user has the catalog viewer IAM role. So let me go ahead and share this catalog to a project that I created earlier. And I'm going to share the second catalog to also a project in my hierarchy. Now I'm going to go to the end user view of the private catalog. So I'm at the org level, which is why you don't see anything right now. So if I go to the project level of where I just shared those solutions to, you can actually see the three solutions that I created. All right, so now let's go into one of these. Oh, actually, no, before I go there, so basically, you can see the different catalog names that I entered earlier. So I mentioned that was important because this is what your end user is going to see. So I can filter by the catalogs, and you can see the two deployment manager templates I added there. I can filter by the different types. So here's the deployment manager templates. We've got the reference link itself. I can also search against the description, against the product name. This will bring down, it will show me kind of what's there. And then if I go into one of these, basically, this is the detail page for the content I created. So you're probably wondering, this looks a lot like the Google Cloud Marketplace. And it does, because we actually are reusing the same components on the front end and the back end. In fact, we're actually the same team that built the marketplace that's building the private catalog. So in here, I want to go to a link. If I click here, it will just take me to the reference link. So if you're not deploying a deployment manager template, you want to use this, again, you can point to documentation, point to a GitHub repository, point to Terraform scripts, whatever you'd like. And then on the tool side, so I can go ahead and actually launch this VM that I actually added earlier. So the first thing I need to do is basically, here's my Quan test. All right, so here's the parameter. So you saw me earlier actually delete those items inside the zip file. And so now, as an end user, you can imagine they're coming in here. I want to deploy this VM, and I can only choose these machine types and these zones. So your end users can't go deploy in like the biggest possible, beefiest machine and waste a ton of resources and money, and they can't deploy to different regions because you're limiting to kind of what they can do here. So I'll just go ahead and choose the machine type and zone, hit deploy. This goes through the regular deployment manager experience, and then this will just go ahead and deploy and go through. All right. So I'm going to go back to the slides. If you guys can help me switch back. All right. Cool. All right, so I just showed you how easy it was to actually go create a catalog, go add content to it, and then make it visible to your users. So basically, from a discoverability perspective, it's really easy for people to know what's available because they just go to this end user console. For governance and compliance, you as the admin make sure that your users are deploying the latest and greatest that you're making available. And then from a control perspective, you saw how I basically put in guardrails. So those end users can't go ahead and deploy willy-nilly on any machine types or any regions that they want. And because it's all parameterized and it's through Deployment Manager, you could change those parameters to whatever you want. I mean, you can set up different ranges for auto-scaling groups. You can different parameters. You can set up different RAM types that you want them to deploy as well. So all that configuration and control is up to you as the admin. Best of all, this is going to be free. So we're not going to charge you for this. This is going to come out. You can just use this in your enterprise. We want you to deploy more GCP solutions, right? But this is actually going to be free. So let's dig a little bit into like the 4 pillars I mentioned earlier. So discoverability. So when you have someone new to your team, someone that just transferred over, someone new that you hired, I think it's great to just say, go here and deploy all the approved solutions for you. This is a single tool. So I've talked to several customers in the last few months as we were building this. And I asked them explicitly, what do you guys use today? Like, how do people discover stuff in your enterprise? And I've heard everything from wikis, emails, notepad documents, spreadsheets, Word docs. It's kind of all over. So we're kind of like getting rid of all that. Here's a single place. I showed the searching, filtering. So you can filter by the solution type, by the different catalogs. And then as an end user, if you have access to multiple catalogs, you'll see a union of all that information, which I kind of showed earlier, where you had 2 catalogs, and you actually saw everything that I shared to that project. So for internal compliance and governance, this is all about your end users, right? So your end users want to know that they're always deploying the latest and greatest. They don't want to think about it. They don't want that friction, right? They want to be confident they're deploying the latest, blessed solutions that you as the IT admin has put in there. So they want to know that they've deployed all the latest security patches, right? I mean, security is a big thing right now. There's new patches coming on. There's vulnerabilities happening all the time. Images get updated. They don't have to worry about that because you're putting up the latest and greatest. Every company has its own policies. Again, they want to make sure that wherever they deployed, someone has approved, so they don't have to even think about it. And then for compliance, if you have a lot of VMs, a lot of solutions, and you need to basically update them, we have APIs to allow you to actually do bulk updates. So control, So sharing of the catalogs at the GCP hierarchy, at the organization, folder, or project level. So visibility depends on that end user having access to that hierarchy and having the IAM role. So for talking about IAM roles, so we have an IAM role for admins as well. So you don't have a bottleneck. You don't just have one person. So you can have multiple admins manage and curate your catalog and the products themselves. So I mentioned earlier the guardrails. So you can put up guardrails to make sure people aren't deploying machines that they shouldn't be deploying to, that they're actually deploying to the regions that you're limiting them to. You can add RAM, scaling groups, anything you want. And then only the admins can add content to the private catalog. So admins are controlling what actually gets to be there and what your end users are going to see. So this kind of highlights that DM template again. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see on that little notepad document I had earlier. But what I've highlighted here is basically how you would actually go ahead and define the guardrails within your deployment manager template. And then inside the schema file, this is where you would enumerate the different combinations of things that the users would be able to get to. So let's talk a little bit about the APIs. So we built the APIs first. We built it with the product itself. It wasn't an afterthought. And we do have admin APIs for all the CRUD operations, so creation, update, deletion. And so this is great for basically bulk updating of your content. We have end user APIs as well. And so this is allowing you to query for what your user actually has access to. And so this would be useful for basically enterprises that currently potentially have their own solution right now and want to include cloud software. Or let's say you had ServiceNow in your enterprise, and you don't want to get rid of that, but you do want to include GCP content. So you could use the end user APIs to check what the logged in user has access to, and then query for that. And then for deployment, basically you can leverage the deployment manager APIs, which are currently public. And these slides will be available later, so there's a link to it, to the deployment manager APIs. So end user query APIs, we've got catalogs where you can list and get catalogs. You can do products. You can do versions. On the admin side, we've got catalogs, so you can go create the catalogs. You can update catalogs. You can delete catalogs. You can, I think we have an undelete catalog as well, if you screw up. So we have identity, so you can kind of check what the identity of the user is and what roles that they have. We have association. This is why I called sharing earlier. So this is basically APIs to create to share the catalog with some part of the GCP hierarchy. So then, of course, the products and version APIs as well for your solutions. So I want to give you an example of kind of how you can use these APIs. So let's say you actually had a CI/CD solution to build these VMs. And so it exists today. You've got maybe a GitHub repository. You've got some scripts. And so anytime someone actually makes an update, there's a process that gets kicked off that basically generates a new VM, deploys those scripts onto the VM, runs those scripts. And you can integrate with that process that you currently have and call the private catalog APIs, which then will allow you to then update that solution inside your private catalog for your end users. That way you've got that full lifecycle, everything works, it's this full solution, and your users, again, don't have to care about that. They're always going to be deploying the latest and greatest. So we launched our alpha last week. This was actually a good sprint. We've actually worked on it for only about 6 months. So what do we have today? So we have that UX experience that you saw for the end user and for the admin. So we have our APIs, so where you can do CRUD operations on the product and on the catalog. We've got APIs for end users for any integrations that you may want into your own homegrown solution or something like a ServiceNow or anything out there. We basically allow you to create multiple catalogs. So it's up to you on how you want to define how your catalogs should work. Like it could be a catalog just for developers. It could be a catalog for a certain platform. It could be a catalog just for your legal department, whatever you want. Right? But you can create as many catalogs as you want. There's no limits there. So you can basically have IAM rows to allow other admins to go and manage those catalogs and those solutions. So we support 2 content types today. So there's the reference links and deployment manager templates. And so our goal, of course, is to continue adding to this and add more solution types. So there's a single point of entry for your admins and your end users. And basically, the IAM permissions will gate whether they have access to the admin console or not. So that kind of simplifies, so everyone just goes to a single place. So we integrate the Diem experience, which looks exactly like the cloud launcher, so you kind of have the same flows. So anyone familiar with the cloud marketplace, we actually just changed the name. So anyone familiar with the GCP cloud marketplace can just follow that same path. And then if you have any org policies set within your organization, and if you use the DM constraints, we're going to respect all that. We're not going to override anything. So all that kind of works well within the GCP environment. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to influence our roadmap. So we have just shipped an alpha. And so we have a lot of ideas of what we want to do next and how we want to make this bigger and better. But we want to make it so that it's something that's enticing to you, that you want to use, and that you're going to deploy in your enterprise. And so one way you can help us and influence our roadmap is to actually go take the survey. And so actually, can you just flip to the next, to my machine? All right. So we've got a max diff survey here that I'd love for you guys to kind of just take. And basically, it's 10 questions. It's going to list a bunch of features that we're thinking of actually adding. And so all you need to do is like, yeah, this is the least important, this is the most important on each one of these. It'll take about 5-10 minutes, but the data you're going to give us is going to be really valuable because then it'll actually help us understand kind of like what are the things that you do need in your enterprise to make this actually really useful and valuable. So it'll be a great partnership for you to kind of just help take the survey. All right, can you guys flip back? Cool. All right, so g.co/cloud/private catalog survey. All right. All right, so we're in alpha. It's not publicly available, but it is available. So we want you guys to try it out. So cloud.google.com/private-catalog/signup. So it's a really simple form. Give me your name, email, company title, and then we'll get you whitelisted so you can try it out. We've got a ton of documentation we already wrote, so we kind of walk through the scenario that I presented earlier. We even documented as well, so you can kind of follow the same steps and things that I've done. We've got a getting started guide, a quick starter guide as well. So try it out. Right? So basically, go to cloud.google.com/private-catalog/signup, and then basically send us information. We'll get you hooked up. All right, and then if you guys have any feedback, private-catalog-feedback@google.com. So let us know if there are any features you think are missing, if you have any comments, things like that. I'm on this alias. A bunch of the team is on it as well. This is a great way for you to kind of get in direct contact with us. And again, we want to build this thing so that you guys can use it, right? Like we're building this for you to kind of help you with your enterprise. And so we'd love to partner with you guys to make sure that we're building basically a great piece of software that you do want to leverage and use. All right. So with that, I am done. Thank you.